This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Business, Equity, and Opportunities. I'm Scott Sander. The purpose of this hour is simple. We're in the business of helping aspiring entrepreneurs, maybe you. Each week we focus on 7 topics, things that all entrepreneurs face. We speak to people who've been through the process in hopes that sharing their experiences will help everyone. The topics are getting started, accessing capital, the week in business, accounting and bookkeeping, running your business day to day, a focus on a specific industry, and a success story. We're here with a new show every Sunday on Wish TV, and you can live stream us at wishtv.com. We post each of our 7 weekly segments from past shows on our website. It's beoshow.com. Watch them, share them. Scan the QR code with your phone right now and it'll get you right there. We have a separate QR code for each segment now as well. And while you're there listening to our Business, Equity, and Opportunities podcast, part of the All Indiana Podcast Network, subscribe to the weekly newsletter that we update every Tuesday. Now, let's get to the business of business. Here's what's coming up today on Business, Equity, and Opportunities. We look at the impact of Black Friday and Small Business Saturday. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management announces federal opportunities in Indiana. Our CFO, Shea, looks at retirement plans. More insight on transitioning from the military to civilian business leadership. Also, living a zero-carb life. And we look into the Burmese American business community. First up, getting started, and we start with a topic that's getting a lot of traction lately, podcasting and how your business can benefit from it. Managing editor of our All Indiana Podcast Network, Alan Hoff, talked with noted podcaster Dave Jackson about the perks of having a pod.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Getting started.
So we're talking today with the principal of the School of Podcasting, award-winning Hall of Fame podcaster, Dave Jackson. Morning, Dave.
Good morning.
There's a lot of talk about podcasting as a growing business, but less talked about is how podcasting can help grow business. So let's talk about how businesses can benefit from podcasting.
I think the biggest one is there's no spam in podcasting. So anybody that listens is listening because they like your stuff. And so the goal is to figure out who is my target audience for my business? Who am I trying to reach? And then you just ask yourself, okay, what would this person listen to or watch, and create that show? And in some cases, a friend of mine, Gary Leland, used to run a sporting goods store. And I'm not sure even how he determined this, but he created a podcast about women's fast pitch softball. And I think it was because it was probably on like ESPN 37. Like, it was really ignored as a sport. And yet it was an Olympic event. And so he started this podcast and he did it every week. So by having a set schedule, you're kind of seen as reliable. And then he would interview different players and give tips. And, so the audience, which was, women's softball players, were listening and, oh, I've never tried this, and this is a new strategy and things like that. And then Gary was his own sponsor. So he would just come on. He's like, hey, we'll be interviewing, Olympic pitcher right after this. And then Gary would come on and talk about Leland sports. And he started doing things like putting in coupon codes that were only in the audio version. It wasn't on his website. And he was amazed at how many people that were actually using the coupon, which meant they were listening to the podcast. And he said he used to spend about $10,000 a year on Google AdWords. And he said he just quit doing it because the podcast was bringing in so much traffic. And it was because he found this, relatively small audience compared to something like on TV. He goes, but everybody that listened there loved women's fast pitch softball. And then they would learn about Leland sports. And then they would tell their brothers and sisters and moms and dads and whoever. So it just spread the whole word. And so the way a business can really benefit from a podcast is to create their own, which they then sponsor, and the content is for the people that they're trying to attract.
And it sounds like from the success of that podcast, he probably had to expand his softball section in his sporting goods store too.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said it was kind of funny because he got to interview all these different people And then I forget which Olympic Games it was, but he actually got to go to the Olympic Games as press because he was in the media. So he got a free press pass and got to go to all sorts of, kind of behind the scenes stuff because he knew all these different players. So there's more than just sales. It really positioned him with a network of people. And then in some cases, he got press passes for some places.
Well, and by doing so, it positioned him as an expert in his field.
Absolutely.
So what kind of businesses would benefit the most from podcasting?
Boy, that's a great question. I mean, on one hand, the default answer, I just want to go, well, everyone. I know a lot of real estate people have benefited because what happens is there are things that you really need to be involved with when it comes to selling the house. And there are other things that, they're kind of 101 stuff. And so I was talking with a guy and he said what he did was he took all the questions that, we all love our customers, but it's like, if I have to answer that question one more time, whatever that is. And he said he took those kind of questions and made them episodes to his podcast. And if somebody emailed him and said, how do I get my house appraised or whatever, he would still answer the question via email, but he'd be like, we talked about this on this episode of my podcast. And he said what was great about it is they would go over and listen to that episode and get their question answered. He goes, but they also then would get all the other questions answered that they were probably going to ask later. And he said, so what's happened? He goes, it's not the end of cold calling. And he goes, but all that kind of 101 stuff, I don't have to do as much. He goes, now they're getting involved when they're really ready to buy their house and they really need me. He goes, I don't have to do so much hand holding as much. So in terms of, what's the top one, it really, I'm not sure that it matters in a way. It's obviously you need people that listen to podcasts. So if I was doing retirement planning, although in a way you should be doing retirement planning when you're young, but
sure.
Sometimes we have those late bloomers and, when you get into people that are, 70 and above, that's actually, it's a really weird thing that those people, believe it or not, have smartphones, but they don't listen to podcasts. So that's the criteria is you need somebody who's actually listening to podcasts.
So that might be something as a business is considering. Do we want to start a podcast? Do we want to put our business out there in the podosphere? As we're starting to make our business plan and including podcasting in that's one of those things that you might want to consider. Is our audience out there? What other things should a business consider when making their business plan to include podcasting?
Yeah, just treat it any way you would with any kind of marketing, whether it was, advertising in a magazine or TV or newspaper or radio or whatever. Just factor it in with the budget because it really doesn't cost much to launch a podcast depending on what you're doing. If you're doing audio only, you can get a decent sounding microphone for about $100. You'll need some sort of artwork, and I'm going to assume that you have some sort of graphic person on staff, but if not, there are free services that you can use to make your artwork. And then for media hosting, you're looking at about $20 a month to reach a global audience. And so, it really doesn't take much to get up and going. And then from there, it's just a matter of, okay, what are we gonna talk about on our show? What can we do to make sure it resonates with our audience?
Again, thank you, Dave. I appreciate your input and talking to us today. Dave Jackson, everybody.
Well, thanks for having me. This has been great.
If you'd like more information about podcasting or to see our other Getting Started segments, links abound on our website, beoshow.com. Scan the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly there. If you have information that's helped you launch or operate a small business, tell us how you're doing. We'd love to share your story. Send us an email. It's beo@wishtv.com. Up next, the impact of the post-Thanksgiving weekend. This is Business Equity and Opportunities.
One-on-one conversations with major political candidates from the voters' point of view.
The All Indiana Politics Podcast with Phil Sanchez. Unfiltered. Available in both audio and video format on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Business Equity and Opportunities. I'm Scott Sander. It is time to talk about accessing capital. One of the year's biggest retail stretches is coming up. Days right after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday. They bring, for shoppers, the promise of big discounts. For you, possibly bigger profits. To get a feel for the importance of this weekend to your business and bottom line, we talked with Stacey Poynter, the Indiana District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Access to capital.
Well, you know, there are over 500,000 small businesses in Indiana. They employ almost half of the employees in the state. So a huge impact on the local economy for small businesses. So we have Black Friday, the traditional shopping day that you go to the big box stores on Friday. And of course the relatively new thing in the last few years is Cyber Monday, where everybody's staying at home on their computer. But in between that, you have Small Business Saturday, which is to directly impact these small businesses that are the lifeblood of the community. Not only shopping small, but dining small. Don't forget about your local restaurants. Well, obviously they're thinking there's going to be a pretty big crowd that's coming in as people are out and about in the community. And so they should make sure they're staffing up and being prepared for that. But, you know, obviously the opportunity to offer some special deals for the shoppers that are going to be, you know, tired from shopping for the last couple of days. So, you know, letting them come in and relax, maybe some drink specials or some food specials. So we highly encourage that. We're trying to amplify the message. So we're out and about. We were in Lafayette last week doing a walking tour. We always try to pick a community throughout for every year to go out and amplify the message, to remind folks that that day is coming up, November 25th this year. And then also for those businesses that are just getting started, we have free resources that are available through the Small Business Administration and our partners that can help them grow their business and expand their business. Free one-on-one business counseling. You can sit down with a mentor through our Small Business Development Centers, our Women's Business Center, our SCORE chapters throughout the state. So we have a lot of partners throughout the state. We are located here in Indianapolis, but we travel with the state as well. So we're willing to meet folks where they're at. SCORE gets involved in the fact from a mentoring perspective, but not directly on the day itself, but they're available to help folks think about strategically how they want to grow their business. I think it depends on the type of business you're in. Obviously, if you're a major retail business, that depending on walk-in traffic, this is like your day, right? So people were geared up, charged up, ready to go shopping for the Christmas season, the holiday season. So absolutely, this could make or break your year. So you know, opportunity to offer some specials to draw that crowd in, especially if you're in a neighborhood where there's several retail. Maybe you get together and have a Small Business Saturday celebration as like Fountain Square. We've done that, Mass Avenue, things like that in the past that we've done. I know they're doing events like that. So this is an opportunity for you to get out and really network with your fellow business owners to draw that crowd in. Obviously some strategies as we're looking, you know, for next year, and the holiday season is obviously their big time of year. Then, you know, what are they going to plan in January? How are they going to grow their business? That would be a perfect time to come in and talk to us, talk to our partners about taking their business to the next level. This is the 14th year we've celebrated Small Business Saturday with our co-sponsorship with American Express, who started this in 2010. I think obviously in those last 14 years we've seen more online shopping, so we are highly encouraging our small businesses to develop their website, and again, we have free resources to help with that as well. So I would think that would be the major shift, would be more online shopping. So I think you need to have two fronts. You need to have the retail front for the walk-in folks, but you need to have an online presence, especially if you're selling goods. We're hearing a lot of good things. We're hearing it's going to be really big, a lot of shopping this year, so we highly encourage people to get out and shop small, and for those businesses to be ready for all those customers that are coming in.
If you'd like more information about this or any of our access to capital stories, we have links on our website. It's beoshow.com. Later this hour, Shea on your company's retirement plans. Before that, though, the U.S. Office of Personnel Management shares federal opportunities that may be available to you. This is Business Equity and Opportunities, and the time to talk about the week in business. Kiran Ahuja serves as the director of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, or OPM. Spent more than 2 decades in public service and executive nonprofit work before President Biden nominated her to become the first South Asian American and first Asian American woman to lead the OPM. We talked with her during a visit to Indianapolis about some of the federal opportunities available here.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. This Week in Business.
We were created a number of years back to manage the federal workforce, to set policies, to ensure that we employ what we call the merit system, merit-based hiring. And so we actually govern and create policies that are, agencies have to follow. So we put a little bit of those kind of guardrails on what it means to create a workforce, a civil service workforce that is governed by the kind of qualifications they bring in into the federal government, their expertise, how we want to utilize them to support the American public. So we're kind of the HR arm of any business, but for the largest employer in the country, 2.2 million individuals. And so we also support agencies to help with building out their workforce, managing their workforce. And a perfect example is here in Indiana, you have probably more than $4 billion from infrastructure investments, 200 plus projects. So before that could go out the door, agencies had to build the staff inside their agencies in order to get those dollars and those programs set up. That's what we do, help them, give them the ability and the tools and the manpower to take what is a pretty significant project and make sure it comes to fruition. The federal workforce and federal agencies are an important employer here in Indiana and Indianapolis. We have 26,000 federal employees in Indiana, 13,000 in Indianapolis alone. So we're thinking about that a lot. We're thinking about recruiting more of those individuals into the federal government and enticing them by all host of things regarding the kinds of experiences that they can have in the federal government. We'd like to say we win on mission. So I think oftentimes if you talking to business owners, right, they're thinking about how they can advertise and promote their job opportunities. But I also think it's a brand issue as well, at least for the federal government, maybe similarly for larger sized employers. I think for us, we have to compete with the private sector. And I think in our minds, we do that in a few different ways, which is we remind people about the mission and the kind of work that you can do in the federal government. We say that you can find a federal version of every dream job in the federal government. Literally every occupation is found in the federal government. And now we have these workplace flexibilities where right now there's about 2,000 jobs that people can apply to in Indiana, whether they're based here or remote. So these opportunities are far and wide. Federal employees are in every county in the country. So I think we think about what's our brand, how we market, what are the benefits, opportunities for growth, especially for Gen Z. If we think about that in particular, I think they're very demanding, as they should be, around the work experience they want to have. And I would say finally also people care about an inclusive work environment. They care about the commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's been a big part of how we think about our work. We want to make sure our workforce reflects the diversity that we see around us. We want individuals to feel like they can bring their whole selves to their work. And then they have a supportive work environment. And I think if employers think about that full package, not only like what's the meaningful experience you're going to have, but what's the work environment you're going to come into, because we spend so many hours at our jobs. Yes, we should have all different voices, but we also need those early in their careers to really come in and help us build the bench within our organizations. So I think, the mix of the pandemic being a disruptor, workers just reevaluating what they want in a job. And I think employers have to speak to that, both in the kind of experience, the flexibilities, the new talent coming in. So it's a mix of the disruptor, and I also think this newer generation just sees jobs in a very different way. And I think it's important that we listen to what they want. So I think oftentimes, I'll say for myself, I think it's important to have representation. So leaders of all different types of backgrounds. I think you have a workforce that comes in, they want to see that they are going to have a good experience, they're going to continue to have professional growth, they're going to have a good work environment, and they're going to see a pathway for themselves in that job. And if they don't, they will likely go somewhere else. So I think for us, those are kind of the basic principles around what's the type of environment. It should be inclusive. There should be opportunities for growth. We also want to ensure that I think one thing that we do very well in the federal government is pay transparency and pay equity. the gender wage gap generally is about 17%, and the federal workforce is less than 6%. In our senior executive service, there's no gender gap. We have equivalent of about equal male female, and there is no gender wage disparity in that group as well. I think we certainly want to ensure and do better around further diversity and representation across the board of different communities. But I think it's important that we show that we want leaders of different backgrounds. We think it's important to have that within a business, because in many ways those perspectives help us make good business decisions. You're not just having someone who agrees and thinks the exact same thing that you do. I often say, like, if you're going to agree with me around a conference table, then we've got a problem, right? Because to really tackle a solution, we need to look at it from all different angles.
This Week in Business is made possible by InnoPower.
Also this week in business, entries are open and tickets go on sale for TechPoint's highly anticipated 25th anniversary Mira Awards, honoring the best of tech in the state. Named after a star, the Mira Awards Gala recognizes excellence and innovation in 18 different award categories. There are spots available for judges, volunteers, partners, sponsors. Entry deadline is January 19th. If your business has an event you'd like us to mention on our show, send us an email 3 weeks ahead of time at BEO@wishtv.com. Coming up, going from the military life to the business world. Before that, though, accounting and bookkeeping with Shea. This is Business Equity and Opportunities.
This is Business Equity and Opportunities, accounting and bookkeeping.
As a boss, you may not just be responsible for yourself and not just for the here and now. It is time on Business Equity and Opportunities to talk accounting and bookkeeping with CFO of Circle City Broadcasting, Shea. Thanks for being with us when we take on the responsibility of bringing people in, and frankly, for our own lives as well. Everybody looks toward the horizon, retirement eventually. And if that's something we want to help our employees with, the retirement plan reporting becomes part of the bottom line as well. How does retirement fit into how we should be keeping our ledgers?
Yeah, I think one of the main points about retirement plan and making sure your records are up to date and reporting is up to date is that the Department of Labor, they have very strict deadlines throughout the year that the IRS will sometimes can be lenient if you need them to be, as long as you are communicative and working towards a resolution. If you fall behind and you are in arrears or things like that, the Department of Labor and when it comes to reporting for retirement plans and things of that nature are far less forgiving, and so. That's why it's always important. And if you're doing a 401k plan, you're going to have a third-party provider. You're going to have, a third-party administrators, things like that you pay to make sure that you are in compliance. And that's the way it should be. If employees are investing their retirement funds, their own money into a plan, they want to make sure that that there are proper safeguards in place to ensure that, whether it's malfeasance or company can't go and raid your account and take money out of your account, things of that nature. And so that's why the reporting and the safeguards are so much more stringent and higher in place.
An interesting thing that has happened, and typically I think we see this in larger companies, but it's a good, for instance, I guess, is different people earn different things for different roles they have within the company. And what one group does or doesn't do with the retirement option may affect how much or how little the other group even gets to work with. And I say that as an example of, even though we would like to sort of set and forget the retirement thing, it doesn't seem like that. It's very much, the rules are in place, but within those rules, you could see things getting fluid because you have to follow them.
Yeah, and that's where it's also important if companies, for instance, are reviewing things as like their investments and the performance of the funds that employees are allowed to contribute to, right?
All right, so you're really good at handling curveballs. I'm going to throw you one here because we've not discussed this in the past, but it occurs to me that when you are doing a business plan and executing it, obviously you're thinking about things like compensation for employees. This is part of compensation. Is it on that part of your bookkeeping clustered in the same area, or is it viewed differently?
No, generally differently, at least from my own experience. When it's definitely a consideration as part of an overall package, but and obviously employees, it's important to employees to be able to have a 401k plan, and so employees who are pondering joining your business, it's always one of the first things they ask about. They ask about the pay, they ask about typically medical health benefits, and whether you have a 401k. Those are the three biggies, almost without fail in my experience. And so as a company, yes, you have to consider that, and certainly you acknowledge that there's an expense associated with that, but to be competitive in your environment, in your company and against your competition, it's often a cost of doing business.
I've been listening closely over the more than year we've been doing this now, and I'm going to suggest a fourth thing that I'm guessing probably fits on that list too. Potential employees ask about paid time off.
No question. Yes, that was a glaring omission by me. Yes.
No.
That is definitely another biggie.
See, I'm paying attention. You guide me to these places, and I try to get there, even ahead of you sometimes. Right. That is Shea, our CFO here at Circle City Broadcasting, talking about retirement.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
You can see all of Ty's accounting and bookkeeping segments at beoshow.com. Scan the QR code. It'll get you directly to this segment. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter. Our team updates it every Tuesday, and subscribe to our Business Equity and Opportunities podcast so you can listen to the wisdom of our contributors on your busy schedule. Later, our industry focus is on an Evansville company making guilt-free pizza. Before that, though, going from the military to the business world. We'll be right back. On Business Equity and Opportunities, every week we talk about actually running your business day to day. Dr. Christopher Williams is a military veteran who has served in leadership positions with the private sector, the state, and currently Eskenazi Health. We turn to him for insight into the sometimes rocky transition from the military to the business world.
This is Business Equity and Opportunities, running your business day to day.
My background in the military, I retired from the military after 21 years of services. I've been deployed 3 times, and I served most of my time in the active Indiana Army National Guard. Service members transitioning to civilian life is kind of difficult. A service member brings with them a lot of leadership experience, a lot of talent in that area. However, there's this huge civilian gap. So when you find yourself looking for opportunities on the outside, there's that disconnect. You'll have a lot of employers that are very excited about having someone that has the background of the military and leadership experience, not having to worry about they're going to show up on time, because that's embedded in you, not worrying about if you're going to do the right ethical thing. The issue is not understanding all the different education series that you would have gotten if you were coming through that company or a similar company. There's a lot of programs out there that will help companies bring in veterans into the organization. Specifically for Eskenazi, they have started what's called a ERG for veterans. So they have a group specialized for veterans and also individuals that support veterans. So it's not just veteran related, it's anyone that wants to be a part of that community. I will say that when you leave an organization that has you ingrained in training, you leave the organization thinking that you can take those set of skills and be able to set that puzzle piece into another puzzle board. Well, that doesn't work, right? So sometimes we come to the realization that we have to take a step back and learn some of those tactics and techniques that we didn't know as a civilian. I would say 90% of the jobs, unless you're technical, like if you're certified on the outside as well as inside, like if you're a medical doctor, HVAC technician, or something like that, you're going to have to take a step back and build those skills up to fulfill that area of expertise.
For links and more information, head to beoshow.com. The QR code up right now will take you directly there. Coming up, our success story. First, though, we'll talk with an Indiana company that's found a way into the competitive retail food industry. Stay with us. Each week on Business Equity and Opportunities, we focus on a specific industry. ZeroCarb Life produces what it calls the world's first ever zero-carb, high-protein pizza crust. Its founders took an idea, brought it to market, and landed some valuable shelf space in the process. We talked with one of the co-founders of ZeroCarb Life, Omar Atiyah, about the journey.
This is Business Equity and Opportunities. Industry Focus.
I had a friend that had invented an invention in 2006. I had been in foods. I'm a chemical engineering graduate from Purdue. I had been in foods for a big part of my life with the big foods companies. And when he told me about his invention that had been sort of sitting on the shelf after he invented it because he had diabetes and was aware that there was a big need for himself to eat pizza and not have his blood sugar spike. But it was kind of sitting on the shelf. And so I told him, well, this is an amazing thing. We can invent more products with my knowledge and my ability to scale in operations. We could do a lot of things with this. And so we started the conversation the year before COVID. And then when COVID hit, everything else was shut down, and we decided this was the opportunity for us to refocus all our energies, myself, him, and a team of other partners that I had with me on other things that got shut down. So we focused on ZeroCarb Life and launched it in 2020. Protein as a dough isn't necessarily unique to us. There's a lot of videos on TikTok of how you can make crust out of protein. There's people who use almond flour. There's cauliflower crust, as a lot of people may be aware. But what's unique in our process is that we're able to actually do it in a way that keeps the texture, keeps the mouthfeel, keeps the experience of a pizza slice, but without adding anything to the protein. So it's a pizza crust made purely out of chicken breast protein, not adding anything, and specifically not adding binder, which is usually what you need in order to have that crust hold itself together and to be able to hold it like a pizza slice. And it's the same thing for the chips. So we make the chips the same way, the taco shell the same way. We have a unique patented process of how we do it. We learned a lot about challenges that sometimes you don't plan for and can come your way. So, we started in COVID, like I mentioned, and then very quickly after that, the bird flu happened. So our main source of protein being chicken, actually, that obviously impacted our business quite a bit. But in general, in foods, it depends on the channel you're selling. And so, for instance, if you're selling in retail, there's a lot of relationships that have to be mastered. So you have the distributors. The distributors are really the ones who own the relationship with the final customer, which is the retailer, who then sells it to the consumer. While as a branded food company, we want to be able to have a relationship with that final consumer. But of course, our direct customers are not necessarily the final consumer when it comes to retail or even food service with restaurants. So there's nuances as to how you still manage a relationship, keep your customer happy, your direct customer happy, while at the same time, who you're really living for, who your mission is for, is the final consumer. Shelf space itself is like, it's real estate that is the most valuable on earth. Then you add to that, for instance, half of our product is a frozen product. So if you think of when you go to the grocery store, what percentage of the grocery store is actually the frozen aisle, it's a much smaller percentage than the rest of the grocery store. So you're fighting with the giants of the food companies to get some of that shelf space to sell this new product that no one's heard of before when you're a new brand company. So it's incredible. And we've been blessed. We very early on had a very quick deal with a local grocer that was local to St. Louis and Evansville, at the time Schnucks, and the deal came by us just believing in ourselves and going and put ourselves out there, and very quickly they realized how unique our product was, so it grew rapidly from the 6 stores that they first put us into 80. Now we're in all the Fresh Times in Indiana, and we're being reviewed for national launch at Fresh Time. We just got accepted in Mariano's in Chicagoland, so all the 22 Mariano's stores in Chicago will have us on the shelves. And of course our 400 almost Sprouts stores. So Sprouts is an incredible brand out west and southwest as well. They loved our brand. They're amazing partners, and they've grown things with us and for us, and they're also growing. So we've had this incredible run with retailers, and now we've just joined a strategic partnership with a company that is very in tune with data, very in tune with understanding what customers need in order to deliver to their final consumer at the retail space. And so we're working very closely with them to have our exponential growth phase next year. The most exciting thing, honestly, is the fact that this next year I can see us growing exponentially in retail. So, the first few years of a branded food company, just getting on those first few shelves, getting those first customers to believe that you can service, because in retail, and in restaurant food service, it's really important that you can service the business. So if a restaurant's going to put you on their menu, and then customers come in to buy and they're like, oh, well, we're out of it, we don't have it for another week, that is not a good place to be. If it's retail and they give you shelf space, and then they run out and you're not servicing to refill that shelf space, that's real estate that they're losing money on. You can't have that type of problem when you're on retail. So you better be ready, no matter what the growth is that you have, to fill that shelf space quick and have that capacity to do that. And when you're a small company, you can't overinvest in assets. And what I mean is, I can't overinvest and have a plant that can produce millions and millions of volume, while at the same, because I don't have the business, while at the same time I have to be ready to produce those millions and millions of volume as soon as things start flying off the shelf, which our product has, thankfully been doing that. So it's sort of this delicate balance you have to strike, but always service well. I try not to brag about what we're doing as a company in every circle I have, because I don't want to be like that guy, But I was with a group of friends, and one of them happened to know about the company, and then they're like, and the 7 other guys are like, wait, you do what? And I tell them, they're like, dude, I've been waiting for something like this. You said pizza and chips? And I'm like, yes. So then they all get on their phones and they order it, and then I just received texts, from 3 of them that, man, this stuff is incredible. Why haven't you told us about it? So it feels really good to be able to be humble. At the same time, it's something to really be proud of, that we have these products that people have been waiting on all their lives.
Industry Focus is made possible by Circulus Digital Media.
You can learn more about Zero Carb Life, or if you're interested in starting a business and you'd like to revisit any of our past Industry Focus segments, the links live at BEOshow.com. Feel free to share segments with family, friends, or potential business partners through Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, email. Go to BEOshow.com, find the video, use the buttons right underneath to share in the way that's simplest for you. When we return, we tell the success story of the Burmese American Community Institute. Stay with us.
Every business is unique, and every business has a target audience. Circulus Digital Media can help you connect and grow your customer base with turnkey digital solutions that are nimble to reach a customer base that spans the globe. Pinpoint a specific audience down to the smallest details. No matter the size of your business, put Circulus Digital Media to work for you and get results.
It is time for our success story. The Burmese American Community Institute's a nonprofit organization founded in 2011 that provides educational and vocational support in central Indiana. More than 40,000 Burmese people call Indiana home.
This is Business, Equity, and Opportunities. Success Story.
My name is Elisa Vanhi, Executive Director of Burmese American Community Institute that assists rapidly growing Burmese community in central Indiana with self-sufficiency and integration through advocacy, education, and employment. We've just celebrated 30 years of Burmese community in central Indiana. A few Burmese individuals arrived in 1993, and we actually celebrate that year. And Governor Eric Holcomb also proclaimed Burmese American Month this year, July, to recognize not only the growing Burmese population, but also their contributions to economic growth, high educational performance, and cultural diversity they bring to central Indiana community. That, of course, is contributed to making this place, city, one of the best places to work, live, and play. First of all, Burmese come here as refugees mainly. They have been forced to flee their home country because of their ethnicity, religion beliefs, or participation in political movement, which is basically against the military regime. And when they join here, of course, there are various challenges that they face. Not speaking English or little English, and completely different environment culturally and workplace. So they need to learn English to be able to communicate. And also their children, when they placed in the grade school, they place in the grade level based on their age, not academic performance or background. Of course, in Burma, or the second countries where they first sought refuge, they did not have access to formal education for many, many years. So they're just completely here in a new environment. And at the same time, they are expected to be becoming self-sufficient economically quickly in 3 months to 6 months, so which is not realistically possible. The good news is this population is potential, and they are performing very well, as I have just stated earlier, in education, economy, as well as bringing diverse culture to the community. So we have been implementing programs innovatively and creatively, but also comprehensively, not only just assist these individuals becoming self-sufficient by delivering those English classes, citizenship instructions, job placement, technical assistance to small business startups, and many more. But also, we have been assisting specifically individuals with their small business so that they are becoming as quickly as possible to be self-sufficient economically. When we started this organization a few years from their arrival, the college going rate among the Burmese recent high school graduate was just about 34%, but now it has gone up to 93% last year. But let me emphasize this, that result is a testament of the collaboration and the partnership we have forged together here in our shared community. School districts, parents, community, universities, colleges really coming together, recognizing that coming together can change things. But of course, we all know it takes a village to raise a kid. That's exactly what we have seen in our community here. So we celebrated actually 30 years of Burmese community in central Indiana. really to celebrate our collective success, which is contributing for the greater good of our shared society and our shared community. And that includes, of course, again, recognition of those who've achieved their professional career in many outstanding ways, distinguished service providers, as well as individual leaders. But again, our partners, those who have really worked with us, truly understanding that working together, coming together is a win-win. Everyone wins in our community. So we have been able to partner, strengthen those partnerships in the course of so many years in the past. So we were happy, honored to be able to recognize those outstanding individuals in different fields, education, health, and government, and elected officials, so on and so forth. But also, we were able to recognize and honor the outstanding educational achievement individuals in our community, those who have earned masters and above. So it was a variety of individuals and organizations, more than actually over 100 individuals and organizations were able to recognize. That's really also not only just celebrate our past, but to look at our present and embracing our future, and hopefully that will also inspire individuals, especially young people, to do and excel in their education and career.
That is the hour we have today for Business Equity and Opportunities. Thanks to every guest who shared a story and experience. If you want more information about the topics on today's show, find the links on our website, beoshow.com. Again, the QR code on your screen will take you right there. While you're there, look for the segments from each of our 7 weekly topics from past weeks. Watch them, download them, use the buttons right underneath the video to share them. Listen to and subscribe to our Business Equity and Opportunities podcast as well. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network. Check out the other pods available there as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. We update it every Tuesday. And if you have questions or a success story, we hunger to hear it. Send us an email at beo@wishtv.com. A reminder, Small Business Saturday is at the end of this week. Good time to support fellow small business owners and entrepreneurs. Then Sunday, we'll see you next week for more Business Equity and Opportunities. Till then, I'm Scott Sander. Have a great day.
Business, Equity, and Opportunities, made possible by InnoPower, Bose McKinney & Evans, Gemco, Fifth Third Bank, and Indiana University, Indianapolis.